The Flash, which was one of the few remaining films of the DCEU, quickly fizzled out at the box office. Critics as well as analysts have been trying to figure out what led to the film's demise. Ezra Miller's legal troubles? The end of the DCEU? AARP Batman? But there were some elements to the film worth discussing, which brings us to today's topic of interest, Supergirl, who was played by Sasha Calle. The fans have been divided by her portrayal of the character, with some finding her deviation from the traditional Supergirl to be interesting, while others longed for the classic blonde-haired, blue-eyes version. Whether you liked or disliked her version, it does warrant a discussion about where she drew her inspiration from. Does Sasha Calle's portrayal of Kara Zor-El truly capture the spirit of the character? We now ask the question we ask in every episode. Is she comics accurate? For those of you who have not been to my channel before, I'm going to compare and contrast three main aspects of Supergirl between her original comic book version and the DCEU version. The three aspects are personality, appearance, and abilities. After I make my comparison, I'm going to use a comic book rack to assign the live-action version of the character a comics accurate score, ranging from 1 to 5 comic racks. If you don't know what a 5-rack character is, think Patrick Stewart as Professor X in the X-Men series, while a 1-rack character would be Patrick Stewart's Professor X cameo in Multiverse of Madness. Why was he there again? I'm also going to assess if its comics accuracy is for the better or worse for the character. In this breakdown, we are only going to focus on her comic book origin and storylines as the source material. Now that we got all of that out of the way, let's get into it. There were many iterations of Supergirl before creating the Supergirl, which is Kara, that most people know today, such as Superwoman, who debuted in Action Comics issue number 60, which depicts Lois Lane dreaming of getting Superman's powers and becoming a superhero. The final iteration, and the closest to the contemporary Supergirl, was Supergirl, who debuted in Superman issue number 123, and basically was created because Jimmy Olsen wished her into existence. Every time I wish Supergirl into existence, nothing happened. Due to the positive reception of these earlier versions of the character, Supergirl officially debuted in Action Comics issue number 252, which was published on May of 1959. The story was written by Otto Binder and drawn by Al Plastino, who had experience creating female counterparts to established male superheroes. Binder also created Mary Marvel, Captain Marvel's sister. Captain Marvel is better known as Shazam in the DC universe. No, not that Shazam. We don't talk about that Shazam anymore. Now we've reached a unique situation when dealing with Sasha Calle's Supergirl, because her origin story is a combination of two DC characters, so I'll be doing a little bit of jumping back and forth. Let's start with the classic comic book origin of Kara Zor-El. Kara Zor-El is the cousin of Kal-El, Superman. Her father Zor-El is the brother of Jor-El. It's a very big superfamily tree. Her origin story has varied over the years, but the common thread has been that during the destruction of Krypton, Kara and her family survived on a piece of Krypton floating through space for a few years. Eventually, the survivors were infected by kryptonite radiation, and in a last hope effort, Zor-El sends Kara to Earth to save her life. Now let's analyze Sasha Calle's version of Kara, who also is the older cousin of Kal-El. She says that she's been sent to Earth to protect him, which is from later versions, but is still comics accurate. But now we've reached the point where Calle's version deviates from the source material. In the Flash movie, Barry Allen, the Flash, and Batman look for Superman in an effort to stop Zod from terraforming Earth because Barry has altered time by going back to save his mom. So basically, your standard superhero work week. They find Kara instead of Kal-El being held in a Soviet Siberian facility, being locked away from sunlight for years. This particular aspect of her story was taken from the 2011 Flashpoint story arc, which was written by Jeff Johns and drawn by Andy Kubert. Much like the film, Barry Allen runs back in time to save his mom from being murdered, and this changes everything in his universe. In an effort to stop the impending war between Atlantis and Themyscira, Barry convinces Batman and Cyborg to help him find Kal-El. They find Kal-El in a secret facility, being classified as Project Superman, and he's weak and skinny from being locked away from the sun since childhood. This amalgamation of different stories from the comics is going to make our assessment difficult, but fascinating. Even though there have been various comic book versions of Kara Zor-El throughout the years, there's been some consistency in regards to her personality. Kara is usually depicted as a teenager, which comes with all of the angst. Kara has a more rebellious attitude than her older goody two-shoes cousin, Superman, and is quicker to fight or use her powers to settle her disputes. Aside from her being more pugnacious than her cousin, she also believed in protecting those that can't protect themselves. There are even versions of her being a foul-mouthed party girl, traveling the galaxy, such as her depiction in Tom King's Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. I'd like to have a beer with that Supergirl. Sasha Calle's Supergirl was on screen for a short amount of time, but due to her being held in captivity, she was reluctant to help humanity. Upon seeing Zod's military destroying the city, she decided to fight against Zod because she believed in hope and thought humanity should be saved. Unfortunately, we weren't with Kara long enough to hear any F-bombs, maybe in the director's cut, but she does share the sense of duty and sacrifice like her comic book counterpart. Let's talk about Supergirl's appearance in the comics and the Flash film, which are very different. The classic look of Kara is that of a typical teenage girl, or superhuman Barbie doll, with long blonde hair and blue eyes. Kara's standard Supergirl suit is similar to her cousin's, with the blue top, red cape, and the House of L's S symbol on her chest, a red miniskirt, and a pair of red boots. This look has varied in the animated series, with her also wearing a white t-shirt with the S on the chest, but she still maintains the essence of her sporty, youthful style. Now, when it comes to the live-action version of Kara, she has a very different look. Unlike the classic Supergirl, she has short, dark brown hair with dark brown eyes, while her suit is a mostly blue long-sleeved unitard, with red starting around the S onto her shoulders, going to her cape. This Supergirl looks like she wouldn't be caught dead wearing a miniskirt. Her look was taken from a comic book version of Supergirl named Laura Lane Kent. She was in the Injustice comic book series and was the daughter of Clark Kent and Lois Lane. It's time for us to look at Kara's comic book abilities and her live-action adaptation abilities. Now we have to break this down into the top 4 most important abilities, or we'll be doing this all day. I've selected intellectual prowess, superhuman abilities, natural physical abilities, and technological abilities. Let's bring up the abilities board. Unlike the variations between her origins and appearance between her DCEU and comic book depictions, her abilities are pretty consistent. Kara Zor-El is shown in most versions as an angsty teen who is very intelligent but within reason. We didn't see enough of her in the Flash film to think otherwise, so we're giving her an intellectual prowess score of 65. We now move on to the superhuman abilities, and because she is a Kryptonian, she is basically one of the most powerful characters in the DC universe. Even though she is weaker in the Flash film due to being locked away from the sun for years, she still has the potential for limitless power. In other words, a weaker Supergirl can still kick your butt. So we're giving her a superhuman ability score of 100 for both versions of her character. Now, natural abilities are complicated when talking about Kryptonians because their superhuman abilities are natural to them. But if they are under a red sun, they're stripped of their godlike powers. I'm sure the Kryptonian weatherman gives constant red sun advisory warnings. When Kara no longer has her powers, she has the natural ability of the average everyday non-flying teenage girl, giving her a natural ability score of 10. Finally, when it comes to technological abilities, Supergirl has a score of 10 because the only piece of technology she utilizes would be her outfit, which is designed to withstand the extreme conditions of space and high-speed travel. Props to Supergirl's stylist for that one. Now that we've gone over all the major aspects of the DCEU's live-action version of Kara Zor-El and the comic book version, we now ask the question, is Sasha Calle's version of Supergirl in The Flash comics accurate? Drum roll, please. In my opinion, no. Sasha Calle's version of Kara is a combination of various comic book stories, of which some aren't even her own. So the DCEU's Kara Zor-El is a completely new and unique iteration of the character that does not correlate with the canon. So unfortunately, I have to give the DCEU's mixed parts version of Supergirl 2 comic racks. But even though she is a completely new creation, I would still look forward to seeing Sasha Calle in this role. She conveyed a true sense of loss and hope in her performance. I think she would be great in the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow story, in which Kara travels across the galaxy, aiding a young woman on a quest for revenge. You should definitely check it out. The Flash had a very poor box office performance, so there probably is no tomorrow for this woman, and it's doubtful that we will see her again. But just like Supergirl explained to Barry about the symbol on her chest, I have to have hope. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to give a comic book fan like myself the opportunity to bring you into my world. If you enjoyed this video, do all of the YouTube things. Like and subscribe so you never miss a new video. My name is Tom, and this has been Comics Accurate.